Today, I spoke with Trey Hunt. He is running for the U.S. House of Representatives in District 12 of Texas. Give it a look. So I guess tell me a little bit about yourself and why you want to run for Texas District 12, or I guess you wouldn't word it as Texas District 12.
U.S. Congressional TX12. It's a bit of a mouthful. Sometimes people say just HD12, House District 12. So,
Yeah, of course.
yes, sir.
Yeah.
I was born and raised in this district. I'm from Southwest Fort Worth. I live in Southwest Fort Worth. When I graduated school, I made sure I wanted to start my family here. So I was blessed to be able to have the family connections to make it happen. So the reason that I'm running is I was very disappointed with the last 4 years. I felt like we were getting back on track as a nation, and then we got really derailed there. I'm happy that we have a president that is caring, compassionate, and seems to have the right policies in mind. But I think we did not win the House like we needed to. We did not win the Senate like we needed to make sure that we can keep getting back on track and staying.
We actually lost seats in the House, Yeah, it's ridiculous, but at least we did get the Senate back. But with Joe Manchin, I mean, he's really like a Republican more so. But yeah, so I had one question. I was thinking about this, and I know that your constituents, they primarily lean right. So it's not about various wedge issues, how a lot of our politicians try to get into things. Whenever, because you see so many losing candidates. Like I think Beto O'Rourke made a mistake, even though it was a heartfelt mistake. Whenever he said, "Damn straight, we will take your guns," I kind of like, because I did a little bit of phone banking for Powered by People during the presidential election, and yeah, I just. It was one of those moments where I kind of put my head in my hand. It's like, are you serious? Because I would like to see that guy win and, continue to be successful in the state. He's clearly got the heart for it, but, almost an over display of heart in that certain situation. So how do you think an over justification of freedom could actually lead to an impediment upon itself?
I think the best way of looking at that is just kind of misunderstanding the writing in the Constitution and kind to apply it to a modern sense while forgetting that, when our founding fathers wrote this, they did not have some of these, how do I say this? There was not automatic weapons. I know that's something Beto O'Rourke said. That was something our founding fathers, if they knew about that, they'd say, well, I don't know if a private citizen maybe needs to own multiple of those, and having what they call a militia, even though it's not a militia. So I think there's just a misunderstanding of what we believe is free and freedom.
Yeah. But the one thing I was thinking about whenever it comes to that is COVID right now. I did a little bit of research and I saw that Tarrant County actually has the fourth highest death count in Texas, which is very, very concerning. And there's been a lot of anti-vax sentiment from some of our Texas state politicians. You have the right to, not wear a mask or whatever, but then you also have Governor Abbott. Didn't he try to prevent like small businesses from enforcing their own mask mandates?
Yes, that sounds correct. I think the courts sided against him on that one.
Okay, that's perfect, because you go to Austin, I'm fully vaccinated, so out here, I mean, I don't wear a mask unless I'm like supposed to, and then I'm definitely respectful whenever I have to. But I mean, that was the point in getting the vaccine for me, so yeah, fighting back on mask mandates in public institutions, I think that's been a serious miscalculation from some of our Republicans in Congress, who are now seeing their own people sort of die from this virus. We've had right-wing candidate or right-wing political pundits pass away, and some of their last words were, "I wish I had been into the vaccine." So it's like, I mean, it's not that big of an impediment on your freedom. We just need you to wear a mask to slow the spread so that we can fully get over this virus, because tons of people, it's ridiculous at this point.
I heard somebody articulate the best way, where it's like, if your freedom is impeding on someone else's freedom, then that's not really a freedom. So I think the idea of like, well, it's my choice to get the vaccine, it's my choice not to wear a mask. While that is all true, it's also somebody else's right to be able to go to the store and not have to worry if they're gonna, get COVID or be a carrier for COVID and possibly lose a loved one.
Yeah, and a lot of people have said, "Oh, well, I've gotten the virus." I believe I've had it twice. I know for a fact I've had it once, and then the second time I just kind of like quarantined. Texas Tech removed the mandate that we had to report, if we had caught the virus. So I just kind of like quarantined, wore 2 masks whenever I'd walk my dog the second time, and I mean, yeah. So, what would be your top 3 priorities in serving your neighbors in Tarrant County, if given the opportunity?
It's going to be public transportation, something I'm very passionate about. I believe it's the thing that's going to help us reduce the housing crisis we're having right now. We have more transportation options. We can make it affordable. We can make it quicker. Then we can give people more opportunities to move around, get different houses without having to use rent control, which I know is pretty controversial. It has some studies showing it doesn't work. So I think it's a pretty good compromise, as well as it helps our citizens that are struggling more financially. I've personally worked with the homeless community, and housing, transportation are the 2 biggest barriers, because I can set up appointments for them, but if they don't have a ride or I can't get them a ride, then they're not gonna be able to make it. So every now and again, the bus system here in Fort Worth does offer free rides, and that's great. We see a good uptick in our ability to service clients that way. So public transportation is gonna be top 1. Healthcare is gonna be second. I think COVID's shown that there's a lot of disparities, and I think it's time that we show that healthcare is a human right and guarantee it for every citizen.
This is one of the things I pointed out in one of my videos, because there's, people don't like paying taxes, especially whenever they don't receive anything back from their taxes. So I mean, I think that if we could get to the point, I know that Joe Biden was talking about Bernie Sanders's reconciliation bill. And he was like, look, he said the right thing. We want to lower taxes on working class people, and we want to be more transparent with our tax dollars. I believe in a Medicare for all system. I don't know how we would get there, but I don't know if you would try to jump straight into it and, eliminate the for-profit industry. Easier said than done. They've got a lot of pressure on them, especially whenever they receive vast amounts of donations from those companies, and then that keeps them in office.
Well, I know in the Affordable Care Act, West Passers, a huge problem with some of you were applying, they weren't able to meet that demand. So I think what we have to do is we have to look at it. It's going to be a transitionary thing, where if we do want to get rid of the profit-based system, which I'm for, because I think we see, every day some horrifying dystopian story by somebody that's not able to afford healthcare. So I think we got to do, kind of a 10-year transitionary plan, or maybe 20, and see where we can get going there.
Yeah, exactly. Joe Biden proposed a public option, and then just a simple expansion of Medicare, have it include mental health and, everything in between, dental care, et cetera.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If I'm not wrong, I believe United Kingdom has it where it's, they do have, a healthcare available for everyone, but then they also have a for-profit separate thing that, hey, if you want to pay a little bit extra out of your own pocket and go somewhere else, that's up to you.
Yeah, exactly. No, I completely agree with that. Because I mean, we can't provide the most exceptional care for everybody based simply off our tax dollars. But so long as people are receiving care, then you're saving lives. One of my favorite political pundits, Kyle Kalinske, he mentioned that study that was done out of, I forgot which university, but it was in the Northeast. And it actually mentioned that what a lot of people don't realize, because they say this constantly on Fox News, how are we going to pay for it? Well, hang on, the studies have been conducted. It would save us however many trillions of dollars over the next 10 years.
Yeah.
If you're conservative, then you want to save money. You don't want to be paying an excess for things that, for a broken system.
Yeah. But that broken system is also the one that, funds their campaign dollars. So.
Yeah.
Like there's a
Exactly.
huge conflict of interest. I think that's why they're kind of scared for the People Act, because they don't want that transparency in campaign financing. Because so many things that that are clearly contradictory to their even own best interest would come out if they had to show the cards.
Yeah, well, it was kind of interesting because I'm sure you heard about how I guess Joe Manchin's daughter, she's on the head of some pharmaceutical company, and they're trying to collude with Pfizer to gouge the price of EpiPens, and then his wife serves on some education board, and they want to make it to where schools have to stock up on EpiPens. They should stock up on EpiPens without a doubt, but that's not why they're trying to do that. And supposedly Joe Manchin, there was a report saying that he would actually be for ending dark money. I'm like, wait, aren't you funded? Don't you have a lot of that money yourself? A lot of that dark money in your pockets.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
Yeah. My third thing though would be criminal justice reform, and I think that all three of these things, yes, those are priorities, but I think they also kind of feed off each other. I mean, I've heard of stories of where people are committing crimes because they don't have the health care that they need, mental health or physical health, and they think this is the best option as far as securing the money they need to continue self-treatment, or if they're hoping to be locked up and receive treatment that way. I think that corruption is also a big problem. I don't know if you looked into it all, but Kay Granger raises millions and millions of dollars every election cycle, and she's pretty handedly won almost every election she's had. So it just seems very strange. She's getting so much money for a district that supposedly she can get without much effort.
Yeah, and it was exactly, and it's also disgusting because I covered Ohio District 11, that special election, and all they did was come out and attack Nina Turner out of context. I don't think that many people really truly knew who Chantel Brown was, but it's money that defeated Nina Turner, and I had a strong feeling that it wouldn't this time because Nina Turner was genuinely a popular person, but those attack ads came out and they worked, and they took everything out of context. Nina Turner's, because she was, I'm pretty sure she worked for Bernie's campaign, and she was like, Biden was not close to being one of my preferred presidential candidates, but that's all they had to say that's all they had to do was quote her, and saying that voting for Biden was like eating a bowl of shit. Now, over his presidency so far, a lot of people would disagree with me, but I think he's kind of outstanding at this point. A lot of people on the left are actually backing him up on a lot of his major decisions.
He has like a crazy approval rating of I think like 70% on most polls. So, I mean, he's extremely popular president. That's why I feel very confident about this race, is that I think I have the policies, and I think the platform I'm running on is the right policies that appeal to everyone. It's not a partisan thing that's just going to divide us. I think it's something we all know we can benefit from. Simple things like we need more public transportation, we need better health care, we need criminal justice reform, because this benefits us all collectively.
Yeah, exactly. My dad's representative in the Texas State House, James Tallarico. I don't know which district it is specifically, but whenever it comes to healthcare, I like how he was like, that district actually used to be very red. It was Williamson County, but I like how he's getting out there. He's like, I was a middle school teacher. These are the facts. I have real experience. I had coworkers, like co-teachers, that had to drive for Uber just to feed their kids. And it's like, they did go to school, that's what they wanted to do, but they still have to go out of their way to feed their kids off the job, and he was also, I guess he was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes like 2 or 3 years ago. And it's always a good look, whenever he introduces this legislation. But I mean, what are the odds of it getting passed in the state house? Because he was saying that, EpiPens, some people pay more, or no, not EpiPens, I'm sorry. God, what's the diabetes medication? Insulin. That some people pay over $600 for insulin, and he introduced a bill capping that to like $50. It's like, it's a good look, but if I feel like if people understood that these are the things that, you know, especially Texas Democrats are out there doing, and they're putting it on the grand stage that, you know, it might change their minds a little bit. Because I looked up the median or the average household income in your area. It's around like 45 to like 58 or something like that, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's about right.
Do you think that, you know, a lot of those people can even afford medication like that?
I think it's a lot of misinformation. That's the sad part, and I think that's what really hurts us. I mean, I get attacked on Facebook pretty regularly. I got messages today, as a matter of fact, from people that are blaming me for things that they refer to as like a communist plot or this liberal agenda. And these things are like on some other state, like Ohio, Florida, or even on like the federal level, things that don't directly, you know, have to do with me, but they just see that, hey, he's got Democrat in the title, so therefore he's somehow responsible. So I think we got to really fight that like disinformation by making these like direct connections with people and saying, no, I'm the candidate. I can answer your questions right here on the spot and help, you know, help us find the right answer to these problems and not
But
just get into fear mongering.
that's what's being spouted by, you know, I think Sarah Palin on Fox News said socialists love Kamala Harris. And, you know, I prefer Kamala Harris over Mike Pence any day of the week, but people don't realize that that's not completely the truth. And, you know, she was locking up non-violent drug offenders, you know, up in her San Francisco district where she was DA, excuse me. But yeah, I mean, that's exactly the type of misinformation. They use communism and they use socialism nonstop. And it's like, there's a serious difference, you know?
Yeah, I think it's just buzzword. I'm really hoping that social media is going to be pressured to, you know, filter through post and like really make sure that they're isolating and saying like, hey, is this misinformation? Even though it's not directly, you know, contradicting COVID, maybe it's still something that's, you know, contradicting just well-known facts that, hey, there was no voter fraud. There's no proof of voter fraud, or at least significant voter fraud. Stuff like that needs to be, you know, I think it extends to even stuff like buzzwording.
Yeah. Republicans had the Supreme Court. They contested, you know, various results over like 60 plus times. And only two of those were actually, how would you put it? Only two of those were accepted. And they had nothing to do with the ballot counts, I don't believe. But yeah, and they're still going on about the, you know, stop the steal conspiratorial rhetoric. And
I believe they're still counting in Arizona.
Really?
To this day, I think I saw an article last week, I want to say. Today's Tuesday, so wasn't that long ago. I think they're still trying to count.
Yeah, even if they somehow overturned Arizona, which it's over, if they overturned Arizona and Georgia, it still wouldn't have made a difference, you know? And, you know, one thing that my uncle was telling me, he was like, I believe that a lot of the diehard Bernie Sanders supporters back in 2016 had partial responsibility for Donald Trump's election, you know, because they didn't get out and they didn't vote because they didn't get their candidate.
Protest voting.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I mean, in those swing states, what good is it, you know? Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, Hillary won by 2 million people. I think the Electoral College is something that, you know, we still kind of dance around with conversations about, but I believe that, you know, every state should have fair representation. But I think when it gets so disproportional that I think the last 3 Republicans who have been elected to office, or I think George Bush twice, and then Donald Trump, I don't think they won the popular vote. I think they only won the Electoral College.
And you see that in pretty much every single election that, I mean, our country votes primarily Democratic. One thing I did notice, although we had record high turnout, even here in Texas, was that only 67% of registered voters actually got out and hit the polls, even in this past election, despite us still receiving record turnout. What could you say, you know, to my roommate from the last place that I lived, who didn't get out and vote because he thought that his vote didn't count, you know, that it didn't matter?
I I think somebody articulated it best. I can't remember exactly who said it, but they said if they weren't working so hard to keep you to vote, it wouldn't be important. But they're working hard to make sure you can't vote, so your vote is important. And I think that with Abbott, they're in the current Texas ledge that they're just going kind of wild with some of these like proposals and everything. But I think they know it's not about getting 50%. You just got to get that fringe far right group to turn out in mass, and that's what you need. So your vote is helping to counterbalance that.
Yeah, exactly. I remember whenever I was phone banking with Beto, this one guy, I don't know who called him, but he said that that he was told by some other phone banker from, I'm assuming, a right-wing organization, that he had to have a voter ID, not just a regular driver's license or anything like that. And he's like, well, it hasn't come in the mail. I'm like, well, election day's in like 2 days, dude. You were lied to. Get to the polls. And you got to the polls that next morning. And did I mention, I think I mentioned he was a person of color too. So they directly target these communities, and it's disgusting. They directly target urban communities. So what was that guy tried to have 200,000 ballots in Hayes County thrown out because they were collected at NRG Stadium, So
I mean, yeah, there's just multiple instances here in Texas, nationally. I know Georgia experienced some of that, where I believe they had robocalls. I believe it was Georgia. They had robocalls calling people predominantly of African American descent and saying, hey, if you vote, they're going to check your warrants and stuff like that. It's just another deterrence, so they wouldn't turn out. And then I'm trying to think, there's been a few incidents. Oh, and I was going to say about Stacey Abrams. When she ran for governor, they threw out tons of ballots because they were trying to give it to the Republican candidate. So I think that what we need to do is we need to realize, like, hey, they are cheating. This is cheating. And like when we talk about for the People Act, it's supported by the majority of Americans, which means Republicans are on board too. So I think we know that there's something wrong here, and we need to address it.
And hey, guilty as charged. I've been pulled over for speeding, and I didn't have my driver's license on me. I think I lost it or something like that. And all I had to give them was my name and my date of birth, and I don't know how many people actually have their social security memorized, but like that's all you should need to vote. If a cop can look you up like that, they should be able to look you up in the polls. If you don't have a social security number, if you're not a registered U.S. citizen, you don't get to vote. So there's all this misinformation saying that, oh, they need to bring in illegal immigrants. My dad's actually down at the border right now, and he's so sick of it because every time we get a Democratic president, it seems like, oh, the border crisis is restarting.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that it's been going on. And it's not because of one president or the other. I think it's because of failed U.S. policy.
Foreign policy needs to, better address our allied nations and make sure that they're, having an environment that encourages people to stay and not, leave for better opportunities. Make sure those opportunities are present in their communities.
Yeah, exactly. And this doesn't even get to, and I'm not even talking about wanting to do like nation building or anything like that, but just de-incentivize certain groups from committing heinous acts, so then that country can then stabilize. And you're always going to have people that want to come over here. I mean, I'm still a patriot, but yeah, you wouldn't have as many because our country would be stable and the crime rates wouldn't be so high.
Yeah, I think if we address substance use, drug use here in America, I think that would see a huge decrease in crime. There'd be less petty crime that we would be harassing people for having like a little bit of marijuana on them. But I also think that we could really deter that, like trying to cross the border with narcotics and selling it in the streets, because we have treatment facilities that can help people that are addicted, and we can legalize substances like marijuana, and we can use that tax revenue to help fund healthcare, help fund criminal justice reform, help fund public transportation.
And they did that in Portugal. I don't know if they fully legalized all drugs, but they decriminalized all drugs. And whenever like cigarettes are very unpopular because they've been around for so long, and people see the direct negative effects of them, and it's like gotten to be the same thing with like recreational drug use over there. Don't do this. Obviously you want to crack down on substances such as fentanyl that, are killing people. But yeah, exactly.
I think the Netherlands and Spain also decriminalized, and those people that did become addicted to substances, there was more robust rehabilitation available. So right now, for me, I work with the homeless community. Substance use is pretty rampant in the community. It's very unfortunate. I do my best to help out with housing, getting them linked up with mental health services so they can get counseling or medication, whatever they find might be best for helping them treat, the underlying symptoms that they're using substances for. But the biggest problem I have is not having enough detox beds available, not having enough treatment facilities to where I can immediately refer clients. Because when they tell me, like, hey, I'm ready, sometimes it takes me a week or weeks to get them into detox. And by that point, it might be hard to track them down, or maybe they've gone a little bit deeper into their substance use.
Yeah, it's really horrible. And, especially whenever somebody's down on their luck for whatever reason, maybe they lost their job, or maybe they had an undiagnosed mental illness, right around the time. There are a lot of mental illnesses that really don't show or can't be diagnosed until you're at least 18 or 19 years old, and by then maybe somebody got into drug abuse at even like 16 or something like that, and they're already going off the rails.
It's a lot of self-medication. It's the best way I describe it. So like you're using as an example, schizophrenia kind of shows up in those like later adolescent years, in your 20s and everything like that. And it's a lot easier. Unfortunately, this is just the state of America right now, where it's easier for you to go get some meth than it is for you to schedule a doctor's appointment, get prescribed medication, pick up that medication, and also afford getting that medication before you even pick it up. There's a little bit too many barriers in the way, as well as like there's a lot of financial kneecapping, especially if you're struggling with a mental health disorder. It's only going to make it harder for you. So I think that's why people kind of fall back into self-medication.
Yeah, exactly. And I see that, well, I know I read on your page that you were raised in a single parent household, and I really see the direct empathy that you have with just like everyday people who might be down on their luck. You know what, it was a really strange question, but as a stepson of a Marine, how are you going to change the narrative held by many that acknowledging our country's flaws somehow expresses a contempt for their appreciation of this country and its people, and especially our veterans? Because I remember whenever Kaepernick kneeled for the national anthem to express his contempt for police brutality, somehow we're disrespecting our veterans. My dad's a veteran. He called that one out really quickly whenever people said that he was being disrespected by Colin Kaepernick somehow, who did exactly what he had the right to do in the Constitution.
Yeah, I mean, my stepfather is the ex-Marine. They don't like using the ex-Marine. Once you're a Marine, you're always a Marine. Yeah. But he no longer serves, and he was for the Kaepernick movement. He supported it. And I think that if you truly love something, you're willing to criticize it. I think that's the scariest part that we're at in America right now. It's this undying, no giving of any territory. Like, what I believe is what I believe. And if you don't believe, then you're the enemy. Mm-hmm. I have people tell me daily, like, you need to leave Texas because you don't believe in my ideology. And that's not how it should be. I respect the military. I wish I could have joined, but I have too many medical issues that prevented me from being able to join. And I just think that when I talk about, reimagining the military, I think we need to talk more about the veterans. We need to talk about the people that make the military, not the machines. So I would love to see the VA just get, more resources for them to help their veterans who return.
Yeah, not the contractors, Yeah. I'm against the contractors. I'm for the veterans. They put their lives on the line. I'm actually I go to school on the Hazelwood Act. So, and that's another thing that's, kind of upsetting at times, is some people who go into the military, that's like their only option, and they have to go serve in a war that, they might not believe in, but, that's how they're going to get an education once they're out,
My stepfather is from a small town, Jasper, Texas, out east. He, worked a few jobs right after high school, kind of didn't see himself, going where he wanted to go. So he signed up for the military to give him some different options. So.
Yeah, my dad had an English degree, and he was like, okay, what do I do with this now? I don't want to teach. Or, he didn't want to really like go into journalism or anything like that, and immediately enlisted. in the Army. So Lisa Welch, who I admire as a Texas Tech Red Raider, failed to defeat your potential opponent Kay Granger in 2020. Why do you think she failed, and what gives you confidence in being able to defeat your opponent, assuming you win your county's Democratic nomination?
I think the main thing that kneecapped Lisa Welch was the COVID pandemic. She just had a lot more difficulties being able to go door knocking. I worked for her campaign personally, and I know that was a big issue we had, that we were able to drop off flyers, but we couldn't talk to people. And making that personal connection is what helps you get the vote out, because people are like, oh, I like their outreach person, or I like that candidate because he personally came and knocked on my door. So I think that really hurt her. And then we were also kind of deterred from having groups, because obviously the pandemic's going on, but our Republican counterparts disregarded that completely. They door knocked, had conversations, and they held events. And I think that while they did win this election, and it is very unfortunate, I think that it also severely hurt the community, because they were spreading COVID to a lot of people who probably didn't have the ability to afford the medical bill afterwards, or they lost their lives.
Yeah, exactly. I mentioned earlier how, I recognize that y'all have the fourth highest COVID mortality rate in the state of Texas, which is, it's sad. So yeah, those are the primary questions that I had. I had a couple fun ones, and my sister wanted me to ask you, do Skittles really taste the same, all Skittles?
I think that's a conspiracy theory. I think that's not true. I think I can definitely taste the lemon in the Skittle, and I think I can taste the cherry. So
yeah, I've heard that, your nose can pick up on the taste and that they're scented. I don't know.
Personally, I think it's the M&M company trying to make sure that their competitor doesn't get all the customers.
Yeah. And why do the Horned Frogs over at your alma mater of TCU have a chance of defeating my Texas Tech Raiders on October 9th?
Because team spirit. That's what I'm going to go with. Yeah, that's what I'm going to go with. I have faith for my boys. I think they can pull through. I've loved them. I think they should have gone to nationals 2 years in a row, but
Yeah, the Big 12 was an interesting conference this past season, and I'm looking forward to now that we're about to lose UT here in the next few years, as well as OU, but we also got Brigham Young, UCF, U of H, who we just whooped, and then what was the other one? Cincinnati. So, TCU and Texas Tech, we're the old dogs in this conference now, and
it's a little surreal, right? Because it's a little surreal because TCU was in the Mountain West District, I think, right?
Really?
District. Yeah, I think Mountain West Conference. There we go. So I'm trying to say, I think 10 years ago, maybe, or maybe a little bit more than that. So I feel like me personally, I feel like they haven't been there that long.
Really?
Yeah, that's me personally. Maybe my age is showing with the beard.
I think we entered the Big 12 in maybe the 1980s. I'm not 100% certain. It's been a while since I've looked into that. I've been busy with schoolwork and whatnot. But
I would say TCU is the old dog, and then you're like the grandfather. Then.
Yeah, I guess Baylor and OSU. I gotta do my conference history check real soon. But thank you so much for this interview. And yeah, I'll send you a notification whenever I get it uploaded on YouTube.
Absolutely. I just want to encourage everybody, though, no matter where you live, make sure you register to vote. Register 3 friends to vote. It's going to be a turnout game for 2022 and 2024. So let's make sure we hit the ground running.
We got this in Texas. Texas is changing a lot. The census just revealed that we now have 2 more representatives. I don't know when that goes into effect, but I guess this upcoming cycle.
If the House is able to get it through and the courts don't challenge it. So
exactly. Well, thank you so much. And you have a great rest of your evening.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me. Appreciate you.
Bye.
Adios.